Welcome back, y'all. So today I'm going to be going over a few things. I'm going to start off the video with a little update on what I've discovered since in the last week or so of waiting on parts to come in. So you can see I do have the new tires on. Did end up having to replace all the lug nuts because most of them were stripping out when I tried to put the wheels back on, so I had a few delays. But once I got the wheels off, I noticed that basically it's got SN95, so 94 to 98 probably, front hubs. There's no spacers, and as you notice, the wheels are pretty much flush with the fender, which normally they'd stick in about an inch or so. I do have a little spacer on the back because the Nittos ended up being wider than the whatever Sunomoto tires were on it, and they, without a spacer, they were touching the quad shocks. Which, if you don't know what a quad shock is, you can kind of see it. Maybe not. I don't have my flashlight, but it's a secondary shock on each side of the rear. So there's actually 4 shocks on the rear of some of these. It's just basically to help it stabilize it front and rear a little bit. Anyway, did find out that this thing does have BBK lowering springs and KYB adjustable shocks front and rear. So that's cool. I don't know yet if they're any good anymore. I mean, the springs, but obviously probably still good, but the shocks may be shot. I don't know. Shocks are not that big of a deal. Moving on. So as I said in the previous video, I did already diagnose the fuel, not getting fuel issue, and I'm going to go over that real quick. Some of the places you look. This is a 91 car, so it has the later wiring, which simplifies it for this fuel pump thing, for a variety of reasons. You go through on a Fox body and you get no fuel, and crank no start is what they call it, a crank no start. There's called a crank no start checklist for these things, and it varies from year to year. Like, well, I'm just going to talk about 87 to 93, the last year, the last body style. Like 87 and 88 have a certain wiring harness because their speed density. 89 is when they went to MAF sensor, and then so 89 to 90 they have the wiring going back to the fuel pump is a certain way, and then 91 and 93 is a different way. But anyway, so some of the things, there's a couple of different ways you could check this. I did the easy way because this is, to me, the way that made most sense. I did go ahead and check all the spots, but I'll just do it show you the way I did it. So first thing I did, simplest thing, was raise up the trunk mat, and the brown wire with a pink stripe. If you pull back here, it's one of these guys right here. I just put the key on. There it is. Let me do that again. It's right in here. I just pinned it, grounded, and turned the key on. It's getting 12 volts. So then I went up under the car, and there's a connector. Where are you at? Right here. The brown pink wire comes in here, and it turns into a pink with a black stripe. So I just pinned it over on this side. We're still getting 12 volts. So I knew I was getting power all the way to the fuel pump. Now, once I get the tank down, maybe a different story, but there's a couple schools of thought on why I did it that way. I just wanted to see, why check 10 different spots when it's just a bad fuel pump. Because this thing had been sitting for so long that the tank, the fuel pump probably, who knows, got rusty in there, or the gas went bad and clogged it up. Whatever. Some of the other places you check. Well, down here is all your Fusible Links. And I don't remember which one. I think it's the pink with black stripe. I don't remember, but you can check your fusible links. That's a common one. It's basically just an inline fuse. So if one of these goes bad, you just got to cut the wire and splice in a new fusible link. Obviously, check your voltage from the solenoid. If that was the case, you know, but you wouldn't, if you weren't getting power out of here, then you wouldn't get power on anything. The next place in the line would be checking your ECM relay, which on 79 to, well, I guess really 86 to 2004 Mustangs, the computers are all in here under the passenger side kick panel. And the ECM relay, if you pull in, let me set you down for a second, because you got to basically push on the glove box on both sides. I might be able to get it. Well, I'm not going to bother. The relay's in there. Okay, you can test that relay, and you got to basically go through the schematics on that of which pins to trip. The next one and most common one is the fuel pump relay, which is under here, under the driver's seat. Mine actually is still bolted in. This is the first time I've had a Fox body that was still bolted in, but there's a bracket that holds it in place right here with like a 13mm bolt, I think. And it's just a relay. You check it there. And again, you really need to get the wiring schematics, which the good old Haynes manual from AutoZone has the schematics all in. Which one am I looking at here? Fuel pump. Yeah. So like on your Haynes manual, you would go to on this one for the 87 and up. 12-40, and it has the fuel pump schematics. It's hard to read, granted, because it's real small font on which colors are what, but you can get it done. You got power everywhere back there. Honestly, one of the first places you should have checked was your inertia switch. Just come in here, and you're not going to be able to see it, but there's a red button on the top of it. See if it's popped up. Push it down if it is, see if that fixes it. You may have a bad inertia switch there too. And honestly, on a 91 and 93, it goes straight from the inertia switch to the fuel pump. So it comes down here, goes through the trunk, down to that connector I showed you. Okay, sorry, that was a really fast explanation of that. But anyway, so what I'm doing today, I'm probably going to break this up. I'm probably just going to do the wiring today, but I bought the Aeromotive 340 pump from Aeromotive, and I bought the one, see it comes with everything there, but I got the one that also came with the wiring upgrade for the car. So it's got all new, it's going to have all new fuel pump power wiring, which basically, and I'll go over this, this is going to be fun to try and explain over here. Okay, so you got a relay that you're going to trigger. It also has a fuse in here, and your lead to the lead. We got a ground here, and then your positive, negative, and another trigger wire. This trigger wire is what triggers the the relay to kick power to the pumps. So basically, I'm gonna get this undone. I haven't decided which way I'm gonna go with this yet. I believe I'm gonna go with a. I'll actually read the directions first, see how they want you to do it, and I'll see what's easiest. Because I'm gonna run it through the interior of the car, and going through the firewall, it probably would be easier to start from the engine and have all this extra, the relay and stuff in here. But I got to get it unsnipped real quick to verify that. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so after I laid it out, it's pretty obvious. I did go ahead and just verify real quick with the diagram, but this is your power supply, so that'll go to the solenoid. This is your circuit breaker here. Put a chassis ground on here, so I'll ground that somewhere, probably the same spot the engine bay ground is. You got your wire going here. This is the trigger wire. So, and you can see it's a little bit shorter than the main power ground. So this will go, I will splice this in after the inertia switch to give you an idea, and then this will go down through firewall, or not the firewall, the trunk floor. And then I'll figure out how I want to wire that up. I'm going to do some math on what the max the fuel pump draw is, because I know a lot of people do some stuff with the fuel hat, and that'll be probably for a separate video. But you know, depending on the amperage and wattage, fuel wire gauge is dependent on length. So if it's a short, you know, if it's 30 amps max, I'll do the math on what, because I think it's 16 gauge wire in the factory. I'll do the math, because if I can avoid tearing up the stock fuel hat, because that typically results in leaks and stuff, and I don't want to deal with that. If I could just run this power wire all the way up to the fuel hat and then splice it in right there at the factory connector, I'm going to do that. So anyway, I'm going to start getting ready, and I'll show you how I'm going through the process. All right, so I'll be back. Okay, so it's been a little bit, and I'm sorry for my appearance. I was already sweating when I started filming because it's muggy and hot today, and getting the tires on was kind of a pain. But I'm going to show you how I got the wires through the firewall. Well, actually, I'll just show you kind of where everything's going to go. So you got your power wire. It's going to go to the solenoid. Circuit breaker is going to get mounted. I'll probably do it somewhere right around here. The ground wire, I'm going to feed right like this to this ground, and the relay I'm going to mount somewhere right around here. Now I'm going to push these wires. I need to push this wire through a little bit more, but basically I took this screwdriver initially and stabbed it through the hole of the grommet. I made a hole in the grommet, and then I pulled it out and fed this through. This is just an old magnet that I used because I can, and I did that because you can, this screwdriver is a little short to get tape on it, to get a hand on it. This thing I could extend out longer once I got it through. And I just taped the ends of the three, the trigger and the power and the negative, together to that extended thing and pulled it through. Now this was thick, so it was a lot. It took a lot of force to get through, but that's okay. I could have done it and spaced them out a little bit to thin it out, but this was the quickest solution. Just took a little bit more muscle. So anyway, I'll deal with that in a little bit. Obviously the trigger wire is shorter, so, and I think it's actually going to be too short to reach where I want to go, so I may have to splice in some extra wire, but I've got plenty. Next thing, let's get the kick panel off. This one's missing the little Christmas tree plug, but you would normally just pop that off. Take your Phillips head, run these screws, and then I'll have to work on it once I get the wire to the back. But I'm actually going to run it up under the carpet down here. And once I get there, I'll come back and show you what it looks like. I'll put that back together to keep it in place and move to getting it. That's another painful spot, is getting it up under the seat and to the trunk. Because once you get it up under the trunk, I've got to get all the I could just run it, but I like running it through the moldings. It keeps it all protected somewhat, in case something gets on there. But anyway, I'm gonna start dismantling the interior so y'all can see what it looks like. All right, so got it all taken apart. It's the 4 Phillips head screws. Of course, if you had the Christmas tree plug, whatever you want to call it, you pop that out and this will slide, the kick panel would slide out. Then you got to get the seat belt unhooked, and it's a which one is this? T50 Torx bit to get that seat belt undone. And then you just pull up on the rear seat, it unsnaps, and then really that's as far as you need to go back here. A lot of people will do it taking the whole panel out. I really don't do that because you can really just feed it through on the underside and it'll be fine. So I'm gonna get the wire fed through, and basically once I get to that point, I should be roughly right around there. I'll have to come back here. I'm gonna put the back seat back in it, get this stuff out the way, and I'll show you how I do the trunk. So anyway, I'll be back. This is really just me stuffing the wire down through. I'll follow the factory wiring harness down through here until I get to here, and then once you get to here, it's pretty easy. You can actually feed it through right here and follow it. That's why a lot of people do the factory, but you can go right through next to it and get in. So let me get the wire routed, and then I'll be back. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the wire right here. And I've just got it run down, like I said, alongside factory harness in here. I've got it tucked into that thing. I'm almost out of trigger wire, so once I get it through the back seat, I'm gonna have to measure how much more I need and splice in some more wire there. But I'll have plenty of the hot wire and the negative wire to I should have plenty to at least get to where it goes through the trunk. But I'm gonna put this back together, at least to that point, and then I'm going to get it going the rest of the way, and I'll be back. All right, so I did a lot. Just forgot to start filming. So of course you got some Phillips head screws on the hatch panel here. I went ahead and pulled the shock tower cover just so I could get a little bit more leverage on it. I had the this car has the cargo net, so I just pulled the cargo net hook off, lifted this up a little because where the wires came out was right back here, and basically I lifted this up enough to get the wires up and over, and I'm going to feed it under here. I just wanted to show y'all real quick. See, this is about where I ran out of trigger wire, so got more wire spliced into it. I don't know if I can try to get it to where y'all can see what I'm doing. And I'm just gonna feed this up under, like so. Same thing with the trigger wire. Now, oh. So where I'm going to splice the trigger wire in at I'm going to take off this connector, and it's the going here, and this should be the green wire. Actually, since I've got the wire, I'll probably just run it right up through and splice it into the brown and pink wire. I may leave this alone. Let me scratch my head on that for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and get the, now that I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and get that, and while I think, put the back seat back in it and everything. So, I will be back. Okay, yeah, I decided I'm going to do the other plan, or my original plan. So, I went ahead and unbolted the inertia switch. It's 2 1/4-inch socket bolts or screws. So, the green and yellow wire is what comes from the diagnostic port and the fuel pump relay. So this is off of Mustang Net Forum for 91, 93. The Haynes manual does kind of trip this up, but come on, focus. So anyway, the pink and brown is what goes directly to the fuel pump. So I'm gonna clip this wire. I'm gonna probably peel this tape back, clip this wire, give me some room, and splice in here. And that will feed the trigger wire like it's like as if it was going this way. That'll feed back to the relay back in front of the car. Yeah, that means it just that signal's going back and forth to, but that's how that's wired. I figured the relay would be wired back here, but this is how Aeromotive's kit came, so that's what we're working with. Anyway, so I'm going to get this spliced with the trigger wire, and then I'll get that put back together. And really, all I got to do with the power wires is just feed them through here. I'll have them come out the same location, punch a hole like I did in the front, down through here, but I'm going to wait on that until I drop the tank. That'll be in part 2 of this video. So let me hurry up and get this wrapped up, and we'll get on with our lives. Okay, one final update before I promise before I do this. This is the final. Okay, so I've got it in here, coming out, zip tied, trigger wire going to the brown and pink off of the inertia switch, and got it running, got a zip tied alongside here, and then I just have it coming out right where the factory harness went. And as you can see, there's plenty of wire. Shouldn't have a problem reaching the fuel pump. Of course, I will probably end up splicing in at some point with different wire. We'll see how that goes in the next video when I drop the tank and see what I'm looking at. For the most part, dropping the tank on a 79 to 2004 Mustang is all the same. There are a few differences, tweaks here and there. I mean, in particular, the fuel hat's totally different on a Fox body versus the 04 Cobra. But anyway, I'm gonna get it the interior buttoned back up, and I'll be back and we'll conclude this video. All right, so I totally forgot, so I had to button it up front too. So let me show you what I did. Is I don't have the relay or the circuit breaker mounted hard yet. I'll figure that out later. But so got the ground wire that it came with bolted to the factory ground, and I've got the power feed. It came with a little yellow crimp, and so I pulled that off the sleeve and put some heat shrink on that and just bolted it to the solenoid. Still gotta, all I gotta do now is throw the battery cables on. It should be enough to test it. And basically what I'll do is I'll take my voltmeter, plug it, stick into those 2 wires for the fuel pump, which let's see if I can get y'all to see this. I want to try and get this in before I all this tape that I put on there. It's kind of okay. Now let me go get the key real quick and turn on the ignition. Okay. Key is in the on position. So if I did everything right, we'll see. Okay. Now, just check it against a ground source. Okay. All right. So, make sure I don't have voltage right now, so, which I did before. I'm thinking that I need to have this grounded as well, and then run to a ground. I've got voltage, so that tells me that, all right, tell me that should be good to go. So, with that being said, let me get the key off. Yeah, that pretty much concludes the wiring. The next video will be dropping the tank to install the fuel pump and how I figured that out. So, shouldn't take long, honestly. On my behalf, I'm actually gonna just keep on trucking through and get the tank dropped and get the fuel pump in. Hopefully today I will have it running, but I'm gonna save that for the next video because this video's already been long enough. So until next time, I'll be back.